Welcome to SORMAG's Writer Cafe, where we share the real writer's life over a cup of friendship, sprinkled with laughter and wisdom. My name is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I'm your host. This episode's sponsor is Using Canva for Book Promotion Video Series. Check the show notes for the link. Sitting at the cafe today is Yvonne Hooks and Sheryl Prince. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're going to start with Miss Yvonne. Please share a little bit about who you are. Tell us about your current book that you want to talk about, and give us a little snippet of it.
Okay, thank you, LaShaunda, for inviting me. My name is Yvonne Hooks, but I also go by Bonnie. And I want to capture anyone who knows me by either name. I am a newly published author. I am not a new writer. I have been writing all my life. As a child, I have papers that my mother has kept for me that I wrote as a little girl. I loved writing. I loved reading. It was my way of escaping. I have written many things, but mostly I wrote for family and for my church. At Christmas, instead of sending Christmas cards, many times I sent little short stories or poems. And in my church, I put on a lot of plays that I wrote in pageants, and then for celebrations and different events, community events. So I've written a lot, but I never published until recently. I write in the romance genre and fiction, of course, because my belief is love is what makes the world go round, the right kind of love, God's love. And I write about hope and encouragement and survival and just things that will help an ordinary person to get through their day, with a little bit of entertainment. And I had taken courses back in 2007 on self-publishing. And the course I took, it scared me so that I didn't want to publish, because the speaker talked about how a lot of people published and it cost them a lot of money, and then they were taking advantage of their books. They didn't make what they should have made, and copyright laws and this. And she really kind of scared me. And at that time, I wanted to, but I didn't have a desire to. So for the past, I will say 3 to 4 years, I keep saying, I'm going to publish this year. I'm going to publish this year. Okay, so in 2020, I said, this is the year I publish. And I said, and there's nothing that's going to stop me. And so that was in January, and in March came the pandemic. But I was still determined. And what I found out, that time that we were sequestered was the time I needed to get myself together and to get my book together. So I'm on the path, I'm reading everything I can, and I'm, trying to figure all of these things out, and there's a lot to publishing, believe me. Self-publishing, let me put it that way. And then in July, my son calls and says, Mom, I need you to come to California because I need someone to virtual school my son. They work crazy schedules. So I spent 10 months in California, and it was not a place that I could concentrate on writing or a lot of things, because, with the 5-year, a lot of things are going on. But I was still determined. And in November of 2020, I published my first book. I called it my sacrifice book because I said, if there's any mistakes I'm going to make, it'll be in this book. And yes, I made mistakes, but it empowered me that I was able to do it on my own, by myself. I found out something else in 2020, that I was stronger than I really thought I was. I've always been kind of an introvert, but I found out that I can do this. I don't have to worry about what someone else is doing. Just as Nike says, just do it. So that's what I did. And then, so I published my first book. It was a Christmas book. And then in January, I self-published my second book, Ruby Season. And then in March, I published the sequel, The Underside of Hope. And it's a series. There's actually another one coming out, but I've got other projects first to come out. And I'm going to read from, I'm going to read from The Underside of Hope. These books take place in the 1990s, so it's kind of a little bit old school, but I'm going to read a few pages of it. And this is a series about two people who fell in love, and, you know, the journey that they take, getting together, and then the sequel picks up after they become engaged. And the sequel is more about Carl, because Carl is hopelessly in love with Ruby. She finally comes around, but he is, and he vows his love to her. And then he comes up with a really big challenge, and it's gonna make him question his faith and his resolve to be with Ruby for the rest of his life. So this is, I'm going to read a few pages, and this is when, this is Christmas, and Ruby and Carl announced their engagement, because they became engaged on Christmas Eve, but they're announcing their engagement at Carl's mother's house. Okay, so here I go. After dinner, Tony brought out champagne and sparkling cider. More than a dozen people made toast to the engaged couple, and by the time some were a little tipsy and the noise level went up another notch. Carl seemed so alive tonight. He laughed easily, more relaxed than he'd been in a long time. He held on to Ruby, keeping a close eye on her. She realized he was worried she'd faint or something. "Carl, you can let me go. I'll tell you if I get dizzy," Ruby whispered in his ear. "I'm just taking advantage of the opportunity," he whispered back, kissing her cheek. Suddenly, Ruby noticed Savannah coming towards them. She wore a deep pink Angola sweater with ostrich feathers surrounding the plunging neckline and a long matching skirt with a split up to her thigh. She was stunning, with curls surrounding her face and hanging down her shoulders. A smug smile was plastered on her painted pink lips, but fire sparked in her eyes. "When I heard the news, I just had to come and congratulate the happy couple," she announced in her husky voice, deeper than usual. She maneuvered herself between Ruby and Carl, and then she flung her arms around his neck and planted a kiss fully on his lips. There was a gasp from the crowd, and Carl visibly stiffened, forcefully breaking the embrace. Fire ignited in his eyes as he glared at Savannah. Then she turned to Ruby and said cruelly, "Don't worry, sugar. That was for old time's sake." Ruby didn't know what to do without making a scene when Carl swirled Savannah around. If you ever do anything like that again, I'll make sure you'll regret it the rest of your life. Now leave this house. You're not going to wreck anything here tonight." He and Savannah's eyes met in a challenge of wills. A smile quickly crept across her lips. "Don't worry, I'll be good." She reached for a glass of champagne, but Carl grabbed her wrist before she could touch it. "Regina, find Savannah's coat and give it to her on her way out the door." Again, their eyes locked. Then Savannah stomped her heeled boot and pushed people aside as she ran to the door. "Tony, get that champagne flowing again. There's a celebration going on in here, ain't it?" Carl's voice boomed. Tony grabbed a bottle and began filling glasses, and the noise started up again. Carl massaged Ruby's arm. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I told Savannah about us. I even told her I was going to marry you. I thought she understood. She's just stubborn and used to having her way. I never dreamed she'd do anything like that." Ruby took a napkin and wiped the dark pink lipstick off his lips. "I'm okay. I understand Savannah better than you think." He visibly relaxed. Later, Ruby felt a hand on her arm, and she turned to find Mrs. Henderson tilting her head, motioning to follow her. They went into the deserted kitchen. "I ain't had much of a chance to talk to you since you got here. Parties here are never places where you can have private conversations," Ruby laughed. "This Christmas has certainly been different than what I'm used to. You know your life's going to change from here on out." "My life has already changed since I've met your family. I mean, it's going to be different. You're used to quiet times with your girls, but people just drop by because they want to. We've always had people other than family around us. When Carl was little, I'd have to throw the entire little league out of my house about every night. People just feel comfortable around us. I don't expect you to feel this way at first. It'll be new." Mrs. Henderson began cutting a pie into wedges, and Ruby set out plates for her to fill. "See, most people here are from his little league or went through school with him. In some way, he's done something for all of them at one time or another. That's why they're here. They want to be part of his life. You'll have to share him with others. You need to know this because it would kill him if he had to change. He's just a people person. But I'll say this. You'll never find a more devoted, trustworthy, and loving man than my son." Mrs. Henderson wiped her hands on a towel as she grabbed the cake to slice. Ruby transferred the pies to a serving tray. "Savannah's been a brat since she was a baby. Me and her mother used to be best friends before she married a councilman and got into politics. Now she'd sell her soul to put her husband in a higher position. You know he's running for governor next November." Mrs. Henderson shook her head. "Anyway, they gave Savannah anything she wanted, and she still feels she can have her way. She usually wins whatever she goes after, but it's been worse for her this time. She tried to get Carl before he married Tracy, but they eloped in college without anyone knowing. Now she's lost him to you. Stay out of her way. She's not worth losing your temper or anything else over. Besides, Carl don't love her, never has and never will. But I don't put nothing past her. You just be careful. Carl's warned me about Savannah. I feel sorry for her. She's kind of pathetic." "Don't you ever feel sorry for Savannah," Mrs. Henderson interjected. "She'll take advantage of any weakness you got and turn it into something ugly. I wasn't prepared for it when Carl told me he was going to marry you. He just said it out of the blue. And he didn't even know you. He never showed no interest in any woman since Tracy. Then you come along, and he knew you were the one. And now I know it, too. No one caught his attention like you did. You're good for each other, and I haven't seen him this happy in a long time. He told me about the house and how he wanted to help you. Carl don't do nothing on impulse. He thinks and figures out what's best for everybody before he does anything. But when Carl says he's going to do something, he'll do it. He watched how you care for your daughters. He couldn't marry someone who couldn't love Greg. I know you love Carl. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Mrs. Henderson put the last pieces of cake on the tray, wiped off the counter, and faced Ruby. It's Greg I'm worried about. Greg and I talk a lot. He's a little scared of the changes that will come, but he's okay with Lisa and the girls. In fact, I think Lisa was one of the best things for him. She's helped him to grow up. They fuss and fight like sisters and brothers already. He needs some direction in his life. I've substituted for his mother. Now you'll have to take over. You'll be moving to the house soon, and he'll have to change schools. It'll be hard, but I think Lisa, having been there before, will help. Just be patient with him. He's a really good boy. Ain't never gave me no trouble, just like his daddy. In fact, it was Regina who gave me most of the problems. She stopped speaking for a moment, both lost in thought. What I'm trying to say is it'll take time and some getting used to, but it's worth it to be patient. You'll have a good life, and someday you'll take your daughter-in-law to be aside and talk to her like I'm talking to you. And I hope you give her the best advice about your son that you can. Then the younger and older woman embraced in a warm hug that acknowledged the respect they felt for each other and the love that had grown out of it. When they broke apart, both wiped tears from their eyes. Come on, we got to get these desserts out there to help absorb some of that champagne. You know we don't usually drink on Christmas, but we got something to celebrate tonight, Mrs. Henderson said, grabbing a tray of pies. The end.
I love your voice. That was really good. Really good. I thought the girls, they were going to get the banging up in there, but it was good. Are you ready, Sheryl?
Yes, I am. Would you like me to get started?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, hi, my name is Sheryl Nicole. I'm an educator, an entrepreneur, and an author, as well as an author coach. I recently launched Noah Publishing House, which helps aspiring authors to self-publish their work. And I have worked with 2 authors thus far to publish their books in April and May of this year. And I am in the process of publishing my first anthology along with my 20 co-authors. That is set to release on Friday, June 11th. From Hurting to Healing. It's just a powerful book that's going to change lives. We candidly, vulnerably share our testimonies and hopes of inspiring others. And just to let them know that if God did it for us, he can do it for them. So look out for From Hurting to Healing, an anthology, which is coming out on Friday, June 11th. I have published other books. I published a guided journal. That was my first book that I published back in February of 2019. I was part of a coaching group, and we all published a guided journal, and that was my first experience. You know, you dip your toe in the pool, and you're like, okay, I can do this. I've always loved reading and writing has helped me to escape over the years. Like, I've gone through trauma as well as adversities, and I journaled just to let things out, and I would also write poetry. So when I self-published my first book in February 2019, I saw that it was a reality that I could, make happen again and again. So I followed that up with my memoir, Candid, which I published in June of 2020 for my 40th birthday, and I had a big celebration, and it was just wonderful. And then I published my children's book in December of 2020, because, like I said, I'm an educator, so I published that in December of 2020, and that did really well. I basically had like a virtual book tour where I went around to different school communities and facilitated interactive read-aloud workshops from December up until early February. And then I launched Noah Publishing House in late February, but I really started working on the business in March, and I worked with an author by the name of Elman Woodson to publish his memoir, and then I worked with another author by the name of Simone S. Gray to publish her Powerful Prayers and Petitions book. And now, here we are, 3 months later, working on book number 3, which is From Hurting to Healing, an anthology with my 20 extraordinary co-authors, and I wanted to share, I guess I'll share the preface from that book because it is, 21 chapters, but I'll share the preface, and then if we have a little time, I may share an excerpt from my particular chapter, if that's okay.
Yes, please, go ahead.
All right. So God gave me the vision for From Hurting to Healing at the start of this year. For weeks, I was awakened from my sleep during the early hours of the morning. Like clockwork, between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., I would arise. I've heard that when God wakes you up at this time, he wants to get your attention. He either wants to talk to you and download something in your spirit, or he wants to hear from you and listen to your prayers and petitions. I had just wrapped up a 3-month-long season of praying daily at midnight with my co-author Simone and her friends. We met faithfully 5 days a week to wage war against Satan and his demons, combating the attack they relentlessly unleashed on us and our loved ones. My eyes were open wide to the tricks and tactics of the enemy. I was tired of Satan wreaking havoc in my life and in the lives of those that I love. The prayer warrior in me was awakened and ready for battle. So each morning I'd spring out of bed and obediently assumed my position of surrender, kneeling in prayer by my bedside. I'd pray fervently for my loved ones and myself. Some mornings I'd read the word and then sit in silence, waiting for God to speak to me. Other mornings I'd pace my living room floor and converse with God or sing worship songs from the depths of my heart. I also journaled to express my innermost thoughts and release it all to God. But as time went on and sleep deprivation kicked in, I became less enthusiastic about my early morning sessions with God. One morning, I flat out asked him what he wanted. I'm praying, talking to you, reading the word, and praising you, I frustratedly said. What do you want from me? I just want to sleep. I was so mad, I said a quick prayer from the comfort of my bed and rolled back over to go to sleep. But sleep evaded me because God wasn't done. Finally, he spoke, hurting to healing, I heard him say. And that moment, I figured he was downloading the title for my next book. It made sense because I was in the midst of a dark season, healing from a broken heart. I jotted the title down in my journal and went back to sleep. But something didn't sit well in my spirit about my conclusion. Over the next few days and weeks, I tried to make sense of it. At the time, I actively participated in a large Christian group on Clubhouse. In fact, I frequented several faith-based groups on Clubhouse. While each group had its own purpose, style, and dynamics, the one commonality was the hurt and pain expressed by God's children. My heart shattered as I listened to men and women vulnerably talk about failed marriages, relationships, sexual assault, abuse, addiction, mental health challenges, suicidal ideation, and etc. Wanting to help, I approached the moderator of the large Christian group and offered to facilitate free writing workshops to help people release their pain and begin the healing process through journaling. But God foiled my plan because his plans are always greater than ours. As I was showering one day, God spoke to me clearly, informing me that From Hurting to Healing would be an anthology with myself and 20 other women. My first response was to laugh because God is funny and has jokes. I don't even know 20 women, I retorted. He immediately began downloading the names of people in my spirit who would be a part of this project, many of whom were family members, friends, or acquaintances with powerful testimonies. Over the next few days, he also divinely connected me with beautiful souls I met on Clubhouse, who eagerly accepted my invitation to be a part of this project. I was in awe and amazed by their willingness, but in hindsight, these divine connections came as a result of our obedience. Without hesitation, I began working diligently on this purpose project with limited experience and resources. Almost immediately, I came under spiritual attack because I was doing the will of God. By the end of the first Zoom meeting with my co-authors, I was bent over the toilet vomiting while Simone closed the meeting with a powerful prayer and petition. I was so weak and ill that I laid in bed the whole next day. In another instance, depression reared its ugly head one weekend, resulting in countless tears of frustration. Then there were the many stumbling blocks along the way that tried to deter me. But God reminded me of his faithfulness to bring his vision to fruition. So I forged ahead with the assignment. My co-authors and I banded together to pray and encourage, uplift, and support one another. Daily, I found renewed strength and energy from their testimonies and the growth and transformation I witnessed. I knew that I had to keep pushing for them, for us, and for the powerful messages we shared that others needed to hear. By the grace and mercy of God, we present to you From Hurting to Healing, an anthology, the beginning of an amazing, life-changing journey for all. That is the preface from the book From Hurting to Healing, which will be released on Friday, June 11th. And I am excited about this. Thank you for allowing me to share that excerpt. Because the book hasn't been released, I don't want to share too much. I don't know when this is going to broadcast. But, yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. I see that you are having a good time on Clubhouse, too. That's my new play program.
Yes.
I love it. I love that you made connections like that to start a whole anthology. So that was really great. So what has surprised you most about being a published author?
I would say for me personally, just the fact that when you're vulnerable and authentic and, you put yourself out there, it gives other people permission to do the same. It empowers them. Because when I wrote my memoir, Candid, it's like I put it all out there. I talked about my childhood trauma. I talked about sexual assault. I talked about, climbing my way up through the education system only to leave my six-figure salary and, become a contractor making 1/4 of what I was making and not able to pay my rent and being homeless. I put it all out there. I felt like exposed and naked. But then the reception that I got from that book, I thought people would judge me, but they didn't. They actually embraced me, and they embraced those parts of themselves and felt empowered to share that not only with me, but now I have 20 other women who are sharing that with the world. So that's what surprises me most.
What about you, Yvonne?
Yeah, for me, it's just, I would say it has given me more confidence in myself. Before I published, it's not good enough, or, that I'm not going to be able to make it. But all of my books have been inspired. They have. I feel that God has given me this talent to write, to reach people. And, when I said that, it was like that night, or it might have been that morning, God spoke to me and he said, I don't give you anything that, basically what he said was, I don't give you anything that you're going to fail in. You are not going to fail. He said, you have my spirit inside you, go forth. And that's what I've done. And I can truly say, by me publishing just that first book, I have a lot of confidence in myself, and I didn't even realize it, but I love myself. I wasn't sure before, not so much. I always felt I wasn't good enough. But me publishing this, I have learned to love myself. I have learned to love what I do. I have learned to love that what I have is unique. Not everyone has the same thing, but what I have is unique. Maybe it's not what's the most popular thing out there, but my whole purpose in publishing is to get my book out to the person who needs hope or encouragement, or they've been through the same situation as my characters, So it has really given me a lot of confidence. The other thing that kind of surprised me, a lot of people give me a lot of respect because they think I'm this, best-selling author, and I'm not. I went to my cardiologist on Monday, and we were just talking. He says, well, what's going on? I said, I'm a published author. He goes, wow, you are? He said, wow, now I'm going to look at you in a different light. It was kind of funny to me. And but it is, to me, a worthy profession to be in.
I'm glad you said that, because today on Clubhouse, I was sharing about the promotion mindset, and part of the promotion mindset is believing in yourself in the book. And
right. Yeah.
And I love that you said that you got the confidence because of that book, your book. And I for myself, I've been battling with writing fiction. Because I didn't have that confidence. I have confidence in nonfiction, in my nonfiction stuff, with no problem. I know I can rock that. But I guess once the book comes out, as you say, once the book comes out, then you get a little more confident. But yes, I've met a lot of authors who don't have that confidence, and it's really hard to promote, because if you don't believe in yourself, you're going to have a hard time believing in that book. And
exactly. As
a person who has dealt with that, I have empathy for them. I can understand how they feel, and so one of the things as a coach is that you do a lot of molding. I didn't know that when I first got in there.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be holding a lot of hands. I was going to be pushing my little butterflies out of the cocoon because they was holding on real tight. I ain't coming out.
Are you talking about me?
Oh, you have blossomed. You are showcasing your wings. You just doing a low soar. But I know a lot of people who have a hard time, and I realize that the reason that I can understand them is because they were me, And I was listening to someone about coaching, and they said most of the time you coach, you teach what you went through, and so you understand and you can show them how to get past that, And so it's really hard to teach mindset. It's something that they have to figure it out themselves. I can teach you all about promotion, but if you don't feel confident enough to implement, you're gonna have a hard time. And so I love when I do meet someone that they're scared, but they go, you know what, I'm doing this. Just step out the cocoon and go for it. So I'm proud of you, Yvonne, for stepping out of your cocoon and getting out there and doing more things. And I see you doing more things, and it's really inspiring. So I love that.
Thank you.
I was going to say, and I lost my train of thought of what I was going to ask. What was I going to ask? Well, here's one, because you all have been doing this for a while. So if you started your writing career again, what 3 things would you do differently?
That's a really good question. I would have launched my publishing company probably sooner. I don't know. And piggybacking off of what you ladies were talking about in terms of the confidence, it's like I've known that I was a good writer since I was in elementary school because I had teachers who told me so, and I saw the impact that my writing had, in a professional setting. But then, for entertainment purposes, for lack of a better word, you especially with poetry, because poetry, it's about interpretation. So you definitely have to, have confidence or build your confidence up around sharing your innermost thoughts in a poem that people will criticize. But I think I would have launched my publishing company sooner. I think I would have started sooner. That's what I would say. I would have started, publishing my work sooner, because I didn't publish until 2019, but I've been writing since really 5th grade, so that's over 30 years. Because my writing, I now know is not for me, it's for others, and to be able to relate to someone who has gone through similar situations. So that's the first thing. I would have started publishing earlier. I would have started a publishing company sooner, and then I would have also maybe taken a course or got some mentoring or coaching around running a publishing company. That definitely would have been beneficial. Mm-hmm. So those are my 3 things.
Those are good. Those are really good. I think a lot of us always say we should have started sooner. I always said that too, and then I realized that I wasn't ready.
True.
Sometimes I think, I remember someone told me that I needed to, when you wait till you get to your 40s, you lived a little bit. When I was writing in my 20s, late 20s, and she told me I had to wait till I was 40 to be able to experience life. And at that time, I think I probably was maybe 29 or something like that. And I was like, 40? It's so far away. And I didn't publish until I was 47, 48. So, okay. But I'm thankful for the journey that I went through, because it had helped a lot. I learned a lot about the business that I didn't know back then. I would have signed a whole bunch of crazy contracts because I would just want to get published, but I learned a lot. So sometimes that path is different. What about you, Yvonne?
I would say for me, my biggest obstacle was myself. Mm-hmm. If I could do something different, I would realize that I really needed help, because I was depressed. I was, a lot of times told that I wasn't good enough and I believed it. So if I could do anything different, I would get help. Whatever kind of help it was, I had a lot of people saying, oh, you're doing good in that, but I really wasn't. So that would be the first thing I would change. I would get help. I mean, hopefully I could not be in the situations that I was in. And then as far as publishing sooner, I would only say yes to that if it was in God's will. But he does everything in different seasons. And I just think before I published, I was in a different season. And he was working on me to get me to where I am now. But yes, I wish I would have published. I had so many things in my mind that I let slip away because I said, oh, you're not going to do anything with it anyway. You know, I can remember little pieces of stories that came in my mind, and I would leave a notebook by my bed because most of the time the inspiration, you know, came in the, you know, just before I went to bed or as I'm falling asleep. I mean, I have even written without even knowing I had written something. And it may be the start of its story. It may be a character. It may be a scenario. But I lost all of that because I didn't have confidence in myself. So, yes, I would love to have published earlier, but only if that was in God's will, and apparently it wasn't.
I like what you said, that it wasn't the season yet, and that's how I look at it too. That there is a season for everything.
Right.
My season, it will happen, and so you just have to be patient. I think
exactly.
That stops you. So yeah, it's that patience thing. So what are you guys doing to interact with readers right now?
So I post on my social media platforms on Instagram and Facebook, you know, just promoting the book currently, but I also want to share like excerpts and quotes from the book. We're having a launch party on Sunday for folks who have supported us during this process, and we're going to read aloud some excerpts from the book. I also will plan some other events like, you know, Books and Bubbly, or maybe a book club, or, you know, book signing as the world slowly opens back up. But for my juvenile audience, I facilitate interactive read aloud workshops. I visit them virtually in their classrooms. I read aloud my children's book, Uniquely Me, a poem celebrating individuality. And then we talk about what it means to be unique and how they express their individuality and why we should have respect for all because, you know, no one is different. We're just unique. So that's pretty much how I engage with my readers. I want to eventually get to a point where outside of hosting, you know, like just book or not, outside of hosting events like that are more intimate, I want to also host some that are on a larger scale, like conferences and seminars, because From Hurting to Healing is not going to just be a book. It will be a series. It will be a movement, because there are so many people out there hurting and they just need an outlet. And writing has been the outlet for me, so I want to provide support to them around using writing as an outlet. So we're going to have seminars, workshops, retreats, and they're going to be able to write. And then some folks will actually go through the process of self-publishing. So that's the plan.
I love that. I love that you have a plan for the book. I tell authors all the time that what is it that you want your book to do? Now, a lot of people just want to be published, but they don't realize that book can open up so many doors. Which doors do you want to see open? And I love that you have a plan for that. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
What about you, Yvonne?
What I do for promotion mainly is Facebook, and in the beginning I hated Facebook. I kind of am not crazy about it now, but that's where my readers are. A lot of my readers I picked up from Facebook. I put ads in also, I have a website. I try and change it about every 2 weeks. I put excerpts from my book on there. And the last 2 website postings I had on my website, I defined the characters. I told them what type of person Ruby was and, some of the things she had went through, and I tried to define her as a real person that people can relate to. And then I said website. It was on my newsletter. And then this newsletter that just came out in June, I talked about Carl. I went through Carl's history back to his grandfather just to show how he came to be such a good man. All of my men, even if they're not the best men, but they're strong men. And I wanted to portray him as a strong man, and he is. So I put that in my newsletter. I do a newsletter every other month. And I always put something about my books in there. And I've been doing audio recordings and put them in there, or excerpts from a book, and I do that with my website also. And I do a lot of kind of interface through even, because a lot of people are not on the social media. So I'm texting or I'm phone calling, just seeing how people are doing. And don't let them ask me, how's your book doing? And we get into discussions about the book, and they tell me, if they've read it or not and like that. But the thing I'm doing this month, we have a lot of Juneteenth celebrations here, but I'm going to be in a Juneteenth celebration. It's a parade and celebration on June 27th, so I will have a booth there as a vendor. And what I'm going to do there is I'm going to have a big poster with a picture of me on it, because I'm going to have my mask on so people can see me without the mask. Because I need to let people here in the city know me and get to know me and see my face. And so when they say, hey, my book, that's the woman that was at the Juneteenth or something like that. So I'm going to do that. I'm also, of course, selling the books there. And I am giving away a chapter. I'm going to take the cover and giving away a chapter of the book as a handout. I'll have my business cards. And the other thing that I'm going to do is every half hour, I'm going to give a book away. So there will be a drawing, for the book. And they will have to, when they get their ticket, they'll have to give me their name and email address, and I'll let them know, that, I'm going to send you, so they can be on my mailing list, basically. So that's what I'm going to do in June. I have an audio book coming out this summer, and I'm going to do a reveal party. I guess it's not a party, but a reveal of my book. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to think of things, that will attract people to my brand, because a lot of people don't know me. As I said, I'll just put it this way. I'm an introvert, but when I have to be an extrovert, I can, but it's not my comfort zone.
I mean, you had a whole list of different things that you're doing. I love that, love that, love that. I like that you introduced your characters in your newsletters. That's a great tip. I hope people are taking notes, because it's some good things to do to meet new readers, and that's the whole thing, is doing different things to meet people. Getting out and becoming a celebrity in your community is excellent for you. People get to know you that way. Sometimes we're so busy trying to leave our community that we don't pay attention to that. You gotta sell books there first before you can go somewhere else and sell books. And so I love that. I love that your community is opening back up so you can be able to do that, because I know many people lost many sales last year because of the COVID shutting everything down. I know I pushed back one of my books because I was like, no, I'm going to wait because I want to be able to. It's taken me a long time to get this fiction book together. I want to be able to meet readers in person. So,
right.
But there was a lot of people who didn't have that choice. The book was coming, it was coming. So,
And LaShaunda, I want to give a shout out to you because you were the one that put me on the right track. I can remember, in the beginning, and you gave me a session and we talked, and you had such great ideas, but I'm saying, but how do I do this? But you put it in my head, and I said, you know what? God's giving you creativity, use it. But I give a shout out. I mean, you were the one that led me in the right direction. I thank you so much for that. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing for other people, but you've done a lot for me as a publisher.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And here's the thing that I love about my job is that I get to see the results. I can give tips. I give tons and tons of tips. But what I love is being able to see the person go out there and soar and do what I said. And I've watched you, and you're doing all the different things. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. And when you just came up with all the stuff that you're doing, I'm like, oh, my God, I'm so excited for her. When you're doing things, that's how you meet people. You can't sit and think that they're going to knock on your door. And a lot of people, I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm realizing that most of my clients are introverts. They're like, we ain't doing that. I give them, we have a virtual tea, and I give them all this stuff to do, and I don't. And some people step right on into it and do it, and then some people I never see them do anything, and I'll send a message, and they're like, I don't know, I couldn't do that. And I realized you got to do a little. You got to step out a little bit at a time. And like I said, because I've been there, I understand how it is. I did everything behind the scenes, so when I had to come in front of it, I was like, ooh, no, don't nobody need to see me. And they're like, yes, they do need to see you. And I'm like, oh, no. But I understand that because, like you said, I didn't realize I was an introvert. I've always been a social butterfly, but when you got to come out in front, so I'm a background person. I do all the stuff in the background. I do the background promotion, all that stuff. Coming in front to do the promotion, so when my people tell me, I understand, and I tell them, you got to be like Beyonce and put on your Sasha Fierce and become somebody else just for a little bit. Just do it for an hour. Become somebody else. So I become Madam Social Butterfly, and I go out and I do what I got to do, and then I come back home and be LaShaunda again, But I'm really proud of you. I'm glad to see that you're out here trying to meet new readers because readers already have their list of people that they love, and so you want to get added to that list. And it's hard because a lot of readers are very picky. They like, I don't know. Why should I try you? And I love that you're introducing the characters so they get to see, well, who is this guy? What is he about? And who is this Ruby? Why should we like Ruby? A lot of times people don't do that, so all you hear is just a summary of the book, and you're like, But, you got back history of your stories, and people don't share that part of their writing stuff, and I admire you for doing that because that lets the reader get a little bit more deeper, and then they want to be invested in finding out more about the characters. Why do they? I love when I look at like I watch a movie and then they'll put in the director information. I love that because I get just a little bit more juicy stuff about what's going on with the movie, and I love that when authors do that too because you be like, well, I wonder why they was living here instead of there, or why was he, and he liked to cook and different things like that, just a little tidbit that's not in the book, but you still want to know a little bit about. It's just like they're like, most readers think of them like real people anyway, so you like, sometimes I hear people, well, did so-and-so get married? How many kids did they have? You'd be like, girl, the book is over. But they're invested in the characters, and so if you can put that in the background, you're like, yeah, this is what happened before the book started, and you're like, oh, okay, his wife is this and that, and they did this and that, and that shows to me, it shows that you're invested in your characters, and it shows the readers that, okay, there's more to this story than what I think it is, and then they want to know more. You get nosy, and then you hit the buy button because you like, I'm nosy now. I really got to know what happened, and that's how I got stuck on the Outlanders. I tell about the Outlanders all the time, but I watched the series. I didn't read the book. I was like, I ain't reading the book. I'm not reading the book. No. And I watched the series, and when the first season was over, I'm like, I want to know what happened to Jamie. I want to know, did they get together? Then what happened? So, of course, I went and bought the books. I bought the first book, and then I'm like, I need the second book, and then I need the third, But if I didn't want to know what happened to them, I wouldn't have read the books. And so that's what you want. You want to give them and say, well, what's happening to these people? What happened to Ruby? Did she get her man? Do they get married? Do she punch that lady in the head? What happened? So that's, you just want to know. All right, I got one last question for you all, because y'all have been talking some good stuff here. So I want to know, what would you say to a writer who wants to give up on their writing career? What would you tell them?
Can I answer for? I just have one thing to say.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a lot of opportunity. I mean, the most opportunity is in the graveyard. Don't take it with you.
Oh my goodness, that just hit me really hard.
Because if people don't publish it, no one will ever know what your thoughts or you were like, because when you write, it's a part of you. All of these characters are my brothers and sisters, or some of them are my husbands, okay? But no one will ever know you if you never finish writing.
Good advice. What about you, Sheryl? Maybe drop Sheryl. Hello, Sheryl. Sometimes that happens. The phone drops while you're talking on the phone. Okay. All right. So we are going to move on to the end. This is the end. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. So tell us how we can get in touch with you, Miss Yvonne.
Okay. My website is yhooksbelieves. yhooksbelieves.com. That's my website. I'm on Facebook. And my email is writer@yhooksbelieves.com.
All right. Well, I will include Miss Sheryl's information in the show notes, so you'll get that. I'm sorry that we lost her on the call. I would like to thank our sponsor for today, Using Canva for Book Promotion Video Series. Have you wanted to try Canva.com but didn't know where to start? LaShaunda Hoffman has created a series for you. Inside the series, you will learn the basics of Canva, how to create a bio graphic, a quote graphic, a book blurb graphic, an animated graphic, and bookmarks. These graphics you can use to promote you and your book. The video will take you step by step to help you create your own graphics you can use daily. Check the show notes for the links to Using Canva for Book Promotion Video Series and start creating graphics for like a social butterfly. I want to thank you, our listeners, for taking time to listen to the podcast. I have 3 questions for you. Did you learn something from this episode? If you did, please share the podcast with your community. Would you like to be on an episode? Tell us by writing say the wrong thing. Send an email to onesormag@gmail.com. One last question. Have you promoted your book or business today? If you haven't, go showcase those wings. Someone needs what you have to offer. This is LaShaunda Hoffman, and I will see you on the next.